Galactic Records Administrator Velna Thrix was having a perfectly normal day, which meant she was bored out of her 7 sensory orifices. Her office in the Galactic Central Archives was the epitome of efficiency, no personal effects, no decorations, but just row after row of quantum data crystals and processing terminals that hummed with the collective knowledge of 12,000 catalogued worlds. Velna, with her pale blue skin and 4 precisely manicured arms, took pride in being the most methodical bureaucrat in the cataloging division. She had held this position for 47 standard cycles without a single misclassification. Her exoskeleton ridge would tense at the mere thought of an error. Another day, another data point, she muttered to herself, the standard bureaucrat's prayer as she initiated the morning system checks. The holographic displays around her cubicle flickered to life, showing status updates from automated probes scattered throughout the charted universe. Velna sipped her morning stimulant, a concoction that smelled like burnt rubber and tasted worse, when an alert chimed. Not the standard new data received chime, but the rarely heard anomaly detected alarm that made her spill the steaming liquid on her pristine uniform. A classification error in sector ZX421, Sol System, 3rd planet, announced the system in its pleasant, genderless voice. Danger rating exceeds maximum scale parameters. As Kzzt. Velna blinked her 4 eyes in sequence, a sign of irritation among her species. That's impossible. The danger rating scale is a perfect algorithm, developed by the finest minds in the galaxy. It can't be exceeded. The DRS was the pride of Galactic Central, a precise measurement of every hazard a planet could possibly present to sentient life. From atmospheric toxicity to predatory fauna, from geological instability to meteorological extremes, from technological dangers to sociological threats. Every world was assigned a rating from 1 to 1,000, with anything above 750 requiring special permits to visit. The highest rating ever recorded was 891 for Pyroxia, a planet with sulfuric acid rain, active volcanoes covering 80% of its surface, and carnivorous airborne life forms that hunted in packs. But now the display was showing the small, blue-green world called Earth with a number that kept climbing. 950, 1023, 1146. System malfunction, Velna declared confidently, her fingers already typing the restart sequence. A probe corruption or data contamination. The system rebooted. The number appeared again, now at 1389 and still climbing. Velna's exoskeleton ridge went rigid. This was beyond a simple malfunction. She initiated the emergency verification protocol, rerouting the query through 3 redundant systems. All 3 returned the same answer. Earth's danger rating was now at 1582 and rising. Impossible, she whispered, her professional composure cracking. With trembling fingers, she accessed the raw data stream. What could possibly make this unremarkable world so dangerous? The analysis was bewildering. Earth showed moderate environmental dangers, nothing exceptional there. Geological activity within typical ranges for a tectonically active world. Weather patterns severe in places, but not apocalyptic. Then she saw it, the dominant species factor. These humans were breaking the algorithm by themselves. They routinely engaged in activities that no rational being would consider. They lived in places that should be uninhabitable. They consumed substances that should be toxic. They deliberately exposed themselves to dangers for what the system classified as recreational purposes. And most disturbing of all, they seemed to thrive on it. Velna did something she hadn't done in her entire career. She used her emergency override to access the High Council's direct communication channel. "This is Galactic Records Administrator Velna Thrix," she announced, her voice shakier than she'd like. "The classification code Omega-9. I have an anomaly that requires immediate attention." Within moments, her supervisor, Senior Administrator Plixum, materialized as a hologram in her office. His usual look of bored superiority was replaced by genuine concern. "An Omega-9. There hasn't been an Omega-9 since the quantum jellyfish incident of cycle 3384. What could possibly?" "But your idea." "Earth," Velna interrupted. pushing the data to his neural implant. The danger rating algorithm is broken. Plixum's expression shifted from concern to outright alarm as he processed the information. This can't be right. They're just primitive bipeds. We barely even acknowledged their existence during the last census. The data is verified across all redundant systems, Velna confirmed, and it's still climbing. Currently at 1947, Plixum's chromatophores paled to an almost translucent white. He convened the High Council immediately and assembled the Danger Assessment Squad. We need eyes on this planet before we cause a galaxy-wide panic. As Velna prepared the emergency briefing, she couldn't help but wonder what kind of creatures these humans were. What species could possibly be so dangerous that they broke a classification system designed to categorize every conceivable threat in the universe? She was about to find out. The Galactic Central Assembly Hall buzzed with more activity than it had seen in decades. Representatives from various star systems crowded around holographic displays showing the anomalous readings from Earth, their appendages gesturing wildly in a dozen different species-specific expressions of alarm. At the center of it all stood Commander Dax Ripley, a tall, grey-skinned veteran of the Exploration Corps with more field experience than most of the room combined. His face bore the characteristic craggy ridges of his species, and a scar that ran from his right temple down to his jaw, a souvenir from an encounter with a Venurian acid lizard. "So let me get this straight," Dax said, his gravelly voice cutting through the chaos. "You're telling me that this backwater planet, which we've barely paid attention to for millennia, suddenly registers as the most dangerous place in the charted universe?" Senior Administrator Plixum nodded his bulbous head. "The readings are clear, Commander. We need your team to investigate." "My team?" Dax laughed dryly. "You mean what's left of it after the Betelgeuse incident?" "We've assembled you a new crew," Plixum replied, gesturing toward the entrance. "Specialists who can handle this unique situation." Through the door shuffled what had to be the most mismatched collection of beings Dax had ever seen. At the front was a quivering mass of translucent tentacles bundled into a roughly humanoid shape, wearing what appeared to be 7 different environmental monitoring devices. "This is Kzzt," Plixum introduced, foremost data analyst in the quadrant. The tentacle creature vibrated slightly. "Pleased to meet you, C. Commander," it said, voice modulator fluctuating with nerves. "I've calculated 14 different possible explanations for the Earth anomaly, with a confidence interval of plus or minus 73%. Dax raised an eyebrow ridge. "That's an impressive margin of error." "I'm being conservative," Kzzt replied, somehow managing to look embarrassed despite lacking a face. Next to Kzzt stood a being who couldn't have been more different, tall, lanky, with bright purple skin and wild hair that seemed to defy gravity. She wore what looked like a patchwork of academic robes from at least 3 different universities, each more prestigious than the last. "Professor Quimby," she announced before Plixum could introduce her, extending a 6-fingered hand. "Xenoanthropologist specializing in primitive species development. I've published 342 papers on evolutionary sociology, though my most recent work on the mating rituals of the Stone Age flibbits was quite controversially received. Professor Quimby has some unconventional theories," Plixum explained diplomatically. "Unconventional?" Quimby scoffed. "Just because I suggested that some species might intentionally develop dangerous behaviors as an evolutionary strategy. The academic establishment is simply afraid of paradigm-shifting concepts." Dax looked from the nervous blob of tentacles to the eccentric professor, then back to Plixum. "This is my elite team. A data analyst who can't commit to a conclusion, and a professor who's been laughed out of academia. They're the best in their fields," Plixum insisted, "and the only ones willing to take on a mission with such an astronomically high danger rating." In other words, Dax sighed, everyone else had enough sense to say no. "Essentially, yes," Plixum admitted. "Your ship is prepped and waiting. The inconspicuous observer is our most advanced stealth vessel, equipped with every scanning technology we have." Dax nodded grimly. "And what exactly are we looking for on this death trap of a planet?" Velna Thrix stepped forward, still clutching her data pad like a lifeline. We need to understand why these humans are breaking our classification system. What makes them so unexpectedly dangerous? Are they secretly developing weapons of mass destruction? Have they evolved some kind of biological defense mechanism we've never seen before? Or is there something about the world we've missed entirely? I have a theory, Professor Quimby began excitedly. Save it for the ship, Dax interrupted. How long until departure? Immediately, Plixum said. The danger rating is still climbing. It's now at 2,235. The High Council is concerned that whatever is happening on Earth might not stay on Earth. Dax had seen plenty of dangerous worlds in his time. He'd survived environments that had killed other explorers. He'd faced predators that haunted his dreams decades later. But he'd never encountered a planet that broke the scale. As the team boarded the sleek, silver shape of the inconspicuous observer, Kzzt was already analyzing preliminary data, his tentacles flying over multiple interfaces at once. According to initial scans, the analyst reported, humans appear to be carbon-based bipeds with relatively fragile physical forms. They lack natural armor, possess no significant biological weapons, and have only modest sensory capabilities. So why are they rated as more dangerous than a supernova? Dax asked. Professor Quimby grinned, her purple skin glowing with excitement. That, Commander, is exactly what makes this so fascinating. I suspect we're about to discover something that will revolutionize our understanding of danger itself. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Dax couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was going to be unlike any other he'd commanded. Either these humans were the deadliest species in the galaxy, or the entire galactic central bureaucracy had lost its collective mind. And possibly both. The inconspicuous observer entered Earth's orbit with all stealth systems engaged, its adaptive hull reflecting the darkness of space. On the observation deck, Commander Dax Ripley studied the blue-green planet with narrowed eyes. Doesn't look particularly deadly, he muttered. Kzst's tentacles were working furiously across multiple consoles. Appearances can be deceiving, Commander. I'm detecting unprecedented levels of artificial radiation, chemical pollutants, and something else, something I can't quite identify. Ooh. Look at that, Professor Quimby exclaimed, pointing at a coastal city. They build their dwellings right at the edge of massive bodies of water. One good tsunami and kaput. Dax frowned. Set us down somewhere isolated for initial observations. No contact with the natives yet. The ship's AI selected a landing spot in what Earth maps designated as Nebraska, a flat, relatively unpopulated region. As they descended through the atmosphere, the ship began to shake violently. What's happening? Dax demanded. Atmospheric interference, Kzzt reported, tentacles spreading in alarm. It's like nothing we've encountered before. The ship's systems are experiencing unexplained errors. That's impossible, Dax growled. This vessel was designed to withstand the methane storms of Titanics. The ship lurched downward, landing with a thud in a field of tall plants arranged in unnaturally perfect rows. Corn, Professor Quimby announced triumphantly. A staple food crop that these humans have genetically modified over centuries. Fascinating. Dax activated the external sensors. Environmental scan? Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere as expected, Kzzt reported. Acceptable temperature range. Multiple microorganisms present, but most non-threatening to our biology. Wait, what's that sound? A low rumbling was approaching the ship, and through the view screen, they saw a massive machine rolling toward them, kicking up dust clouds. It had enormous wheels and mechanical appendages extending from its front. Defensive posture. Dax commanded. Power up shields. But before they could react, the shields malfunctioned. A warning light flashed on Kzst's console. Commander, something in this environment is disrupting our technology. Shields at 20% capacity and falling. The massive machine, a harvester combine, passed harmlessly by their ship, its human operator too focused on a small entertainment device in his hands to notice the alien spacecraft. Did he not see us? Dax asked incredulously. Professor Quimby adjusted her instruments. Fascinating. The human appears to be voluntarily distracting himself while operating heavy machinery. The multitasking alone should cause fatal accidents, yet he manages it with apparent ease. Their relief was short-lived. Dark clouds gathered overhead with remarkable speed, and lightning cracked across the sky. Within minutes, baseball-sized hail began pounding the ship's hull. Weather alert. Kzzt shrieked. These are solid water projectiles falling at terminal velocity. Return to orbit, Dax ordered. Impossible. Engines are offline. The atmospheric interference is increasing. As if to punctuate Kzst's statement, a bolt of lightning struck the ship directly. Every system went dark for 3 terrifying seconds before emergency power engaged. By the 7 moons, Dax whispered. Did that just happen? The humans live with this? Professor Quimby asked, her academic detachment momentarily forgotten. Regular electrostatic discharges from the sky powerful enough to disable advanced technology. The storm passed as quickly as it had arrived, revealing a double rainbow that arched across the sky. Visual atmospheric phenomenon, Kzzt noted, somewhat recovered from his panic. Quite pretty, actually. Don't be fooled, Dax warned. This planet is actively trying to kill us. Repairs took 6 hours, during which they observed more curiosities, humans driving vehicles at speeds that would liquefy most species in a collision, aircraft that seemed impossibly heavy for flight, and small domesticated predators that humans kept in their dwellings. When the ship was finally operational again, Dax decided on a new approach. We need better intelligence. Let's move to one of their urban centers for closer observation. They relocated to the outskirts of a city, using a wooded park as cover. Under the cover of darkness, the team deployed surveillance drones disguised as local flying creatures. Look at this, Professor Quimby exclaimed, reviewing the footage. These humans voluntarily consume neurotoxins for pleasure. That one just drank enough ethanol to kill a Regalian swamp beast. And that one, Kzzt pointed a trembling tentacle at another screen, is deliberately inhaling combusted plant matter. They're poisoning themselves for recreation. Dax watched as humans went about their daily lives, driving aggressively through congested streets, consuming questionable substances, working with dangerous tools, and exposing themselves to countless environmental hazards without protective gear. It's no wonder the danger rating is off the charts, he said grimly. These beings aren't just surviving in a dangerous environment, they're actively creating new dangers and then adapting to them. I've never seen anything like it, Professor Quimby admitted. Their entire civilization is built around taking risks that would be considered suicidal by galactic standards. Suddenly, all the surveillance drones went offline simultaneously. What now? Dax demanded. Kzst's tentacles tied themselves in literal knots of anxiety, in known interference. Something powerful is affecting all our. The ship's proximity alarm blared. Something was approaching. The proximity alarm continued to blare as a figure emerged from the trees. It was walking directly toward the ship with no apparent concern for its own safety. It's one of them, Dax whispered, unnecessarily. A human. How can it see us? Kzzt panicked. Our cloaking technology is the best in the galaxy. Clearly not good enough for Earth, Professor Quimby remarked with inappropriate excitement. This is unprecedented. On the view screen, they watched as a middle-aged human male in what appeared to be casual attire, jeans and a t-shirt with the faded words "World's Okayest Insurance Adjuster" approached their ship. He was carrying some kind of metal container in one hand and a small electronic device in the other. Is that a weapon? Dax asked, reaching for his neural disruptor. Unclear, Kzzt replied. Tentacles flying over the sensors. It appears to be a container of liquid. Possibly acid? The human stopped a few feet from the ship, took a swig from the metal container, a travel coffee mug, and tapped on his phone. Then he did something truly shocking. He knocked on the hull of their advanced stealth spacecraft. Hello? The human called out. I know you're in there. Your cloaking isn't working. I can see the outline clear as day against the trees. The three aliens stared at each other in disbelief. What do we do? Kzzt whispered, his tentacles knotting with anxiety. The protocol dictates we should retreat immediately, Dax said. But this is exactly what we came to study, Professor Quimby protested. A chance for direct observation. The human knocked again, louder this time. Look, I'm already late for work, but I'm not leaving until I know what's going on. Either you're aliens, in which case cool, or you're the military testing something weird, in which case I have questions about my tax dollars. He's remarkably calm about encountering an alien spacecraft, Professor Quimby noted, scribbling observations on her pad. Capture protocol, Dax decided suddenly. We'll bring him aboard for questioning. To prepare the traction beam. Before Kzzt could protest, Dax activated the ship's external retrieval system. A beam of pale blue light engulfed the human, who looked more annoyed than frightened as he was levitated into the ship's airlock. The decontamination process completed, the inner door slid open, and the human stepped into the main cabin, still clutching his coffee. "Huh," he said, looking around at the sleek interior and the three aliens. "Nice setup you got here." "You're remarkably calm for someone who's just been abducted by extraterrestrials," Dax observed, keeping his neural disruptor trained on the human. The man shrugged. "Name's Jack Murphy. After 20 years as an insurance adjuster, nothing surprises me anymore. I've seen people do things that would make alien abduction seem boring." He took another sip of his coffee. "Besides, I've been hoping for something like this. Tuesday staff meetings are soul-crushing." "You wanted to be abducted?" Kzzt asked, bewildered. "Beats PowerPoint presentations about deductible adjustments," Jack replied. "So, what's the deal? Probing? Experiments? Galaxy domination?" "We are a scientific observation team," Professor Quimby explained enthusiastically. "We've come to study Earth because your planet has broken our danger classification system." Jack snorted. "Sounds about right. So what's the scale?" "The danger rating scale goes from 1 to 1,000, Dax explained, still baffled by the human's nonchalance. "Your planet is currently at 3,427 and rising." "Only that high?" Jack laughed. "Must not be hurricane season yet." Kzst's tentacles waved frantically. "You experience regular cyclonic weather events and consider this normal?" "That, plus wildfires, earthquakes, tsunamis. The usual," Jack shrugged. "Say, is that some kind of advanced tech?" He reached toward a glowing panel before any of them could stop him. "Don't touch that," Dax shouted. "It's the antimatter containment regulator." Too late. Jack's finger pressed the panel, which immediately changed color from blue to red. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. "Whoops," Jack said, looking only mildly concerned. "We're all going to die." Kzzt wailed, his tentacles curling into a defensive ball. "Hang on," Jack said calmly. He examined the panel, pressed it again in a different spot, then gave it a firm smack with the side of his hand. The panel returned to blue, and the alarms fell silent. The three aliens stared at him. "How did you do that?" Professor Quimby asked, eyes wide with academic fascination. "Reminded me of my old refrigerator," Jack explained. "Sometimes you just got to give technology a little encouragement." "You just averted a matter-antimatter catastrophe that would have vaporized this entire region," Dax said slowly, "by hitting our advanced technology like a primitive vending machine." "If it works," Jack shrugged, taking another sip of his coffee. "So, what else do you want to know about Earth?" Professor Quimby was practically vibrating with excitement. "Everything. Why do humans deliberately seek out danger? How do you survive in conditions that would kill most sentient species?" Jack considered this. "I mean, life's boring otherwise, isn't it? What's the point if there's no challenge?" The three aliens exchanged looks of pure incomprehension. They had found their answer to the mystery of Earth's danger rating, and it was far more terrifying than they could have imagined. The central chamber of the Galactic Classification Committee buzzed with a level of activity not seen in 17 centuries. Representatives from across the galaxy crowded the amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony of different languages, tones, and mechanical translations. In the center of it all stood Commander Dax, Professor Quimby, and Kzzt, looking exhausted after their hasty return journey alongside Jack Murphy, but who seemed to be enjoying the spectacle immensely. "So this is like the United Nations, but for the whole galaxy?" Jack asked, munching on what appeared to be a candy bar he'd produced from his pocket. The wrapper crinkled loudly enough to make a nearby silicon-based lifeform wince in pain. "Please stop consuming that substance during official proceedings," Dax whispered urgently. "Why?" "I missed lunch because of the whole abduction thing." "Because that particular combination of sucrose and stimulants is classified as a Class 3 narcotic in 17 star systems," Professor Quimby explained. Jack paused mid-bite. "You mean my Snickers bar is considered a hard drug out here?" "Awesome." Senior Administrator Plixum approached, his face betraying both fascination and horror at the sight of an actual human in the chamber. "Is this safe?" he asked Dax, not directly acknowledging Jack. "As safe as anything can be when humans are involved," Dax replied grimly. "I've reviewed your report," Plixum said. "It's disturbing. The committee is ready to hear your findings." The chamber quieted as Velna Thrix took the central podium. Her normally immaculate appearance was now disheveled, with signs that she hadn't slept in days. "Members of the Galactic Classification Committee," she began, "we face an unprecedented crisis. Earth has not only exceeded our danger rating scale, it continues to break it in new ways hourly. The current reading stands at 6,182. A murmur ran through the crowd. "I call upon the investigation team to present their findings, which will explain why we must create an entirely new classification system." Professor Quimby stepped forward eagerly, her wild hair seeming even more chaotic than usual. "Distinguished members of the committee, our research confirms that humans represent a unique form of danger previously uncategorized in galactic records. They deliberately seek out risk, consider dangerous activities entertaining, and routinely survive conditions that would eliminate most sentient species." She activated a holographic display showing footage from Earth, extreme sports athletes jumping off cliffs with minimal safety equipment, chefs working with open flames, children climbing on playground structures at least 3 feet off the ground. As you can see, even their recreational activities involve unnecessary risk. The chamber erupted in gasps and the equivalent of fainting among various species. "Furthermore," Kzzt added, his tentacles gesturing at the data scrolling beside the images, "humans have evolved to not only withstand, but actually require, conditions that would be lethal to most life forms. Their home star bombards their planet with radiation daily, yet they voluntarily expose themselves to it for aesthetic purposes." More footage played, sunbathers on beaches, tanning salons, people drinking coffee in the sun. And perhaps most alarmingly, Dax concluded, they possess a psychological trait unknown elsewhere in the galaxy. They become bored in the absence of challenge or danger. Jack, who had been watching this presentation with growing amusement, finally spoke up. "You guys seriously think sunbathing is dangerous? Wait till you hear about skydiving." The chamber fell silent as Jack strolled to the center stage, completely disregarding protocol. Plixum made a small squeaking sound but was too terrified to stop him. "Look, I'm just an insurance adjuster from Nebraska, but I think you're all missing the point. Humans don't survive because we're indestructible. We're actually pretty fragile. We survive because we adapt. We see a problem, we solve it. We encounter danger, we figure out how to deal with it, usually by inventing something even more dangerous." Jack pulled out his smartphone, causing several security officers to reach for their weapons. "Relax. It's just a phone," he said, holding it up. But think about it. We took rocks, figured out how to get the metal out, learned how to make circuits, mastered electricity, and now I can watch cat videos anywhere on the planet. Each step was filled with danger. But we did it anyway, because it was interesting." The committee members looked at each other in confusion and concern. "This human psychological profile is consistent with our findings," Professor Quimby confirmed. They value progress and entertainment over safety. Velna Thrix stepped forward. Then the conclusion is clear. We must create a new classification specifically for Earth. And what would you call it? Jack asked. The proposal before the committee, Velna said, is to designate Earth as the galaxy's first and only Class X planet, a danger level so high it cannot be quantified using standard metrics. This designation would require special protocols, Pixum added nervously. No contact, no visitation, possibly a quarantine buoy system to warn away travelers. Hang on, Jack interjected. You're saying you want to put the galactic equivalent of a beware of dog sign on our entire planet? And more like beware of rabid carnivorous pack beasts, Dax muttered. Jack laughed. All because we like a little danger in our lives? That seems excessive. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded. A technician rushed to Plixum, whispering urgently in his ear. Plixum's expression changed from concern to outright terror. It appears, he announced to the chamber, that our sensors have detected an Earth vessel approaching the outer edges of our solar system. Somehow, they've achieved faster-than-light travel, despite our projections indicating they were centuries away from such technology. All eyes turned to Jack, who looked as surprised as everyone else. Don't look at me, he said. I'm just an insurance guy, but if humans have figured out how to reach your neighborhood, he grinned. Well, things are about to get a lot more interesting around here. 6 standard cycles later, the Galactic Central Plaza looked very different. Where once only the most traditional architectural styles were permitted, now a garishly colored building stood out among the elegant spires. A flashing neon sign proclaimed, "Authentic Earth Experience, Danger Guaranteed." Inside, alien tourists lined up to sample something called roller coasters, virtual simulations of human transportation devices designed to deliberately induce fear responses. Others waited to try spicy food, edible substances containing chemicals that triggered pain receptors. Commander Dax Ripley, recently promoted to Director of Human Relations, watched the spectacle with a mixture of resignation and amusement. Beside him, Professor Quimby was excitedly taking notes on her 7th research paper about human influence on galactic culture. I still can't believe this is happening, Dax grumbled. We went from quarantine recommendations to tourist attractions in less than a cycle. The capitalist instinct transcends species barriers, Professor Quimby observed. Once entrepreneurs realized how much profit could be made from risk-seeking behavior, everything changed. Kzzt floated nearby, noticeably calmer than during their first mission. He'd made a surprising career pivot into extreme tourism, and now wore a gaudy uniform with the slogan Earth Adventures, survived the thrill. The P-package tours to the Grand Canyon are fully booked for the next 3 cycles, Kzzt reported. And the volcano surfing expedition to Hawaii has a waiting list longer than the Great Spiral of Andromeda. Madness, Dax muttered. Complete madness. A familiar figure approached them through the crowd, Jack Murphy, no longer in his insurance adjuster attire but dressed in the formal robes of an Earth ambassador. Following the unexpected first contact between Earth and the galactic community, Jack had been hastily appointed as humanity's representative, and mainly because he was the only human who already knew about aliens and didn't seem terrified by them. How's it going, space friends? Jack greeted them cheerfully. Enjoying the cultural exchange? Exchange implies both sides are offering something of value, Dax replied dryly. We gave you faster-than-light technology, medical advancements, and clean energy solutions. You gave us hot sauce and bungee jumping. And no say, no, Jack grinned. Don't forget reality TV. I hear Keeping Up with the Kardashians is huge on Betelgeuse now. Dax winced. The psychological damage may be irreparable. Speaking of damage control, Jack said, suddenly more serious, I just came from a meeting with the High Council. They've finally approved the new warning system. He handed Dax a data crystal, which projected a holographic image when inserted into a reader. It showed a new galactic map with Earth prominently marked by a flashing red symbol. The Earth Protocol, Professor Quimby read, a comprehensive system for classifying and managing high-risk species and their activities. It's actually pretty fair, Jack admitted. Humans get to explore the galaxy. But we have to follow special safety regulations, and certain particularly delicate planets are off limits until we learn to be less us. An elegant compromise, Kzzt commented, though I noticed the danger rating is still climbing, currently at 12,784. Yeah, we just discovered how to convert black holes into energy sources, Jack said casually. Should revolutionize space travel once we work out a few kinks. The three aliens stared at him in horror. A few kinks? Dax repeated weakly. You're experimenting with black holes. Relax, Jack assured him. We've only had 3 minor incidents, and only one of those created a temporary dimensional rift. Before Dax could respond, his communication device chimed. It was Velna Thrix, now the Chief Administrator of Interspecies Relations. Director Ripley, she said, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly in what he now recognized as extreme stress. We have a situation. A human cruise ship has just requested permission to visit the sacred pools of Xanthavii. They're proposing something called a spring break party. Dax looked at Jack, who had the decency to appear slightly embarrassed. I'll handle it, Dax sighed. As Velna's image disappeared, he turned to Jack. Do you have any idea what your species has done to the galaxy? We were a peaceful, orderly civilization before humans arrived. You mean boring? Jack corrected. You were a boring civilization. Now you're having fun. Fun. Dax repeated the word like it was from an alien language. Is that what we're calling existential terror now? Come on, Jack said, slapping Dax on the back hard enough to make him stumble. Let's go get a drink. I brought some real Earth whiskey stuff that'll put hair on whatever you aliens have instead of chests. As they walked through the crowded plaza, past aliens trying rock-climbing walls and sampling Earth cuisine, Dax had to admit, if only to himself, that the galaxy had changed. Whether for better or worse remained to be seen, but it certainly wasn't boring anymore. Meanwhile, back at Galactic Central Records, an automated system continuously monitored Earth's danger rating. The number kept climbing steadily, not because Earth itself was becoming more dangerous, but because the rest of the galaxy was finally beginning to understand just how dangerous it had always been to be human. The screen currently displayed Earth Danger Rating. Below it, a simple note had been added. Beyond measurement, approach at your own risk. May cause excitement.